You're listening to On the Way Home with your host, Emmy Kelly.
Hi, everyone, and welcome back to On the Way Home, the podcast where we explore the big questions around housing, homelessness, and what it really means to build thriving communities. I'm your host, Emmy Kelly. I'm especially excited about today's conversation. I first met our guest, Scott Dutchak, when we were co-presenting at the University of Toronto School of Cities. Scott has a depth of insight and his grounded practical approach to one of the toughest challenges we face, creating truly affordable housing that lasts. Scott is the president of Catalyst Community Development Society, an organization that's leading innovative housing projects across British Columbia, with a model that blends public funding, private partnership, and social impact investing. Catalyst is reimagining how we fund and deliver nonprofit housing at scale. Today, we'll explore how they are making it work in their communities, the policy shifts that could unlock even more progress, and what keeps Scott motivated in his work. Let's get started. Scott, welcome to the podcast. It's great to have you here.
Thank you for having me. Been looking forward to this.
At On the Way Home, we like to begin each episode with a simple but meaningful question. What does home mean to you?
Yeah, that's a great question. It's something, I think, you reflect on, you think about. And to me, home really is a place of dignity, safety, and stability. I believe it's where, people can build a life. They can raise their kids. And at the end of the day, come home, relax. They have a sense of belonging. And it's more than just four walls. Oftentimes we think of homes as this piece of infrastructure that we invest in, like roads and schools and stuff. But it's more than that. It's the foundation to well-being. When I think of home, I think about permanence. I think about a place where you're not worried about rent hikes or rent evictions or displacements. It's that kind of stability where you can be a launch pad for everything else in your life, healthcare, education, employment. So it's really this idea of permanence, of retreat, of stability. It allows you to get on with everything else in your life, to be honest with you, when you're well housed and you have secure housing. And so, I mean, it's what we focus on at Catalyst. We had tackled this missing middle type of housing where we're helping seniors on fixed incomes or childcare workers or even newcomers to Canada, and helping them build this foundation so that they can get on with the rest of their lives is really what home means to me. And so that's why I'm excited to be doing what I do.
That's awesome. Maybe to start us off, can you tell us a bit about Catalyst Community Development and what drew you personally to this work in affordable housing?
Yeah, for sure. So Catalyst Community Development Society is a nonprofit. We're a real estate developer and operator. We're based in BC, and we create permanently affordable homes across British Columbia. We currently have around 1,200 homes operating, with a few hundred more in the pipeline. As I said, we kind of focus on missing middle, not in the built form type of missing middle, but those people who are left out of either subsidized rent or market rent. And these are people who are earning a modest income and so forth. What makes Catalyst unique, though, and our organization is how we blend government funding with community partnerships and with private social impact investing. And this hybrid model, we found, allows us to move quickly and think creatively about building a lot more housing. So, I've spent my career in real estate, leading development portfolios for institutional investors, corporations like TELUS, even a REIT. Over time, I started to feel that, I wanted my work to have a little bit more of a social impact, a direct social impact. And so when I first joined Catalyst, I was inspired because of the ambition that Catalyst had. It's a small organization, but it's having tremendous impact. And it really has a entrepreneurial, bold approach to being almost like a market developer, but with that discipline and that sort of approach to financing, to building, to construction, to operations. But at its heart, it's a nonprofit doing tremendous social good. So it kind of met the mold that I spent my career growing up in, experience in and on the private side, but also with a social conscious and obviously a tremendous impact. So that's what really drew me to Catalyst, and it's been fantastic. It's really fun, and the fact that we get to travel around and do developments and projects all across BC in a ton of different communities, from Tofino to Victoria to Vancouver to the Okanagan. And for those of you, your listeners who might not be familiar with BC, it's quite a broad geography and completely different communities where no matter where you go. So that's a fun part of the project of the job too.
And you mentioned kind of the unique model that you have at Catalyst. It blends public funding, private partnerships, social impact investing. Can you walk us through how this hybrid approach works and why it's been key to your success in delivering affordable housing across BC?
Yeah, for sure. So again, at its core, Catalyst operates with a mindset of, as I said, a disciplined real estate developer. We do extensive underwriting and due diligence on our projects, but again, we're always mission driven, and that's what guides us. But our model stacks public funds. So what that means is that we would take, for example, impact equity funding to buy land, or we get land from municipal government level. We'd add low-cost debt to that to create, these projects. CMHC, we do a lot of work with the federal government, CMHC, and their lending programs. As many as most of your listeners would know about CMHC financing. And so what happens is we get this what we call a capital stack of different lenders, and have them all play nicely amongst each other to actually give us the funds that we need to create the projects. And this layering approach has been very successful for us. So for other projects that might not pencil out to be affordable, we're finding that with this stacking method, we're able to offer our tenants rents that are 20 to 40% below market. So the other thing that people don't realize is that these homes remain affordable over time, again, because we're not always raising rents to market rates and so forth. The affordability that we lock in day one of a completed project is typically affordable for the next 25 to 30 years. So and it's not unusual for Catalyst to find a whole bunch of different funding streams in that capital stack. Probably the most I've seen is 5 or 6. So I think that's what makes us unique.
Yeah, I think you kind of have to do that nowadays to create that affordable housing. With your project spanning a number of communities, like you mentioned, different demographics, different needs, how does Catalyst tailor its approach to meet the unique needs of each place while staying true to your mission of long-term affordability and community partnerships?
Yeah, that's a great question. Oftentimes, we know each community is different. So the first thing we do is we try to find a community partner to partner with. That could be a municipality, could be a faith group with some excess land, could be another nonprofit. And we really listen to what those needs are in the local community. Obviously, housing is housing, and that's the business we're in. That's what our impact and our mission is to increase affordable housing. But that nuance is again community. So for example, in Tofino, which again for your listeners might not be familiar, it's on the extreme west coast of Vancouver Island, very remote. We knew that the demand in Tofino for affordable housing was related to hospitality workers and healthcare workers. So we tailored our project and unit mix and unit sizes to address that. We did a project in Penticton where our partner was more concerned about, and they were focused on, their mission was focused on seniors and multi-generational families. So again, that influences unit layout, unit size, building configuration, and so forth. So what we like to do is make sure that our buildings reflect that need for the community. Again, from tenant mix to building scale. Those are the levers that we change, but that doesn't change our mission, and that's permanent affordability, sustainable design, and deep partnerships. So yeah, we're doing that in as many communities that will have us across BC.
At Blue Door, we're trying to get into affordable housing, and we're finding the development is notoriously complex, especially in today's high cost environment. Could you share with us a little bit about how Catalyst is navigating financial challenges like rising interest rates, construction costs, while still delivering viable projects?
It's certainly a challenging time, I think, all across the country. We've actually been trying to advance a few projects, and it's getting more and more difficult for those reasons that you mentioned. Interest rates have doubled in recent memory that I've been, it's gone from basically zero to now 4 or 5% in some cases. And then construction costs have also gone up like 50% in 5 years. At the same time, in BC, what we're seeing is rents actually come down, and that's a great news story. But there's still this huge demand for housing that makes it difficult to make our financial pro formas work. But we tackle this by trying to be nimble with how we do our capital stack, and really we're looking at a number of things. We're looking at refining our building designs. We build primarily 6-story wood frame buildings. We try and get very efficient buildings, over 90% efficient. That's in terms of design layout. Sorry, not like building envelope performance, like heating and cooling efficient. This is building design efficiency. Phasing our construction, we're looking at how do we speed up the construction process to some degree, and then pushing back on financial terms. We're seeing fees go up too with financing. So not only do you get a mortgage, but the mortgage lender charges you a fee, and that can be up to 1.5–2% sometimes. So we're pushing back on those, and then value engineering as well is the other thing we're looking at. But the thing that we're really appreciative of is our social impact investors, and their understanding of the business that we're in, and their ability to be nimble and flexible as well has been really appreciated. So they're not banging on our door all the time to, hey, we need to refinance this project and increase your rates. They're patient capital, and they've been very, very good for us. We're also advocating for government to be more to lend tools that are more faster and responsive, such as faster approval rates. Here in BC, we do have a provincial government that does lend and gives grants for affordable housing, which is great to see. So we're forming those relationships and have those relationships, and are encouraging systems change as well. So we're very strong advocates for broadening the pool of people involved in affordable housing. And then finally, we keep our focus, again, long term, focusing on affordability, sustainability, quality, and if as long as we can do our debt service coverage for our lending, we'll still proceed with the project.
You've been an advocate for policy reform to help unlock more affordable housing. What specific barriers, whether at the municipal or federal level, need to change for nonprofits like Catalyst to do more and faster?
Yeah, it's something that we continue to again push with some of the lenders that we have, especially the senior lenders, government lenders, CMHC being one of them. They have some amazing programs, and I want to make sure that I say that up front. The programs they have for the ACLP, the apartment construction lending initiative, that's a great program. But there's some internal barriers that, for example, I'll just speak to CMHC because I mentioned them first, but there's some internal barriers, I think, with how they approach underwriting that I think they can change. I'd like to bring in, again, even more social impact investors into our program. And I think there's room for them across Canada. But if we got, for example, a loan from a social impact investor that we put in a project with CMHC, CMHC doesn't see that social impact loan as the equity requirement for the project. And what that means is, CMHC will say, well, we'll lend up to 90% of the construction costs or 75% of the construction costs, but hey, nonprofit, you need to put in equity. You need to put in cash into this project to make the numbers work. What we'd like to do is, again, more earnestly use non-traditional funds from social impact groups or so forth as that equity component. But CMHC's rules don't allow that unless that social impact funding is in place for over 25 years or over 20 years. We think that's a bit excessive. So I think making some small tweaks, allowing that second mortgage or that social impact loan to actually count as equity in some of the underwriting CMHC does would be a fantastic move. And I think it would open up so much more money. And it makes sense because CMHC would be leveraging this third-party funds with a nonprofit to actually get these projects going. So it stretches out CMHC's dollar for more projects. So we're working on that with them. Municipal approvals are still far too slow. As you guys in Ontario know, that's years in some cases for rezoning or official plan amendment. Same thing in BC. Public land dispositions, we're working on that. That's another initiative. We've seen that with the federal government looking at surplus lands for housing. They've done it in BC, but they really need to make sure that when they go through this process, these levels of government, that they prioritize social outcomes. So that gives more opportunities for nonprofits to bid on these lands or to make these public lands more of a public good. Affordability covenants is another one. So oftentimes we have to enter into affordability covenants with municipalities, which is something we would do anyways as a non-mission-driven nonprofit. But we're working on making sure that those are flexible for our financing stack. We're encouraging the federal government, it's a new government, and don't know what Build Canada Homes is going to look like, but we're encouraging them to look at the BC Builds model that we have out here in BC as a good starting point. And so we're really pushing to reform a number of these policies to encourage tweaks to the existing policies, all in the spirit of getting more homes built affordably.
Yeah, and I think to follow up on your point, even asking the question or discussing it, I do feel that there are plans being built, and it helps to share and to hear perspectives, right? Because we don't know what we don't know, and by hearing the perspectives of so many in the sector, we spark ideas, create solutions. It can be a linking piece to help us continue to move forward. You've held leadership roles in the corporate world, public sector, and now the nonprofit space, which you touched on a bit. What are some of the key lessons you feel you've learned from navigating these different sectors, and how do they inform your leadership style today?
Well, yeah, that's a tough question. It's one of those reflecting reflecting questions that I think we all do once in a while. I'd say on the private sector, what I've learned there is it's taught me about execution, efficiency, and managing complex risk. At the end of the day, real estate development is all about managing risk. There's so much risk. It's a complex project, from construction to municipal approvals to operations. So I like to think of my time in the more private entrepreneurial sector as teaching me that. The more public sector, when I was at the pension fund here in BC, has taught me about longer term thinking, public accountability, being a fiduciary, and then just general systems level awareness, like how do things happen, and really it's that 30,000 foot level kind of view of things. But the nonprofit world, it reminds me every single day what a mission-driven alignment of an organization looks like, and it's a whole different level of motivation, trust, commitment. So, arguably for me, that's the most rewarding thing that I'm doing. at the end of the day, when you hand over the keys to a new tenant at a building who's moving in, who's come out of a perhaps a basement apartment with mold in it, and they have now this secure housing in this community that they move into, it's incredibly rewarding. So I like to think of my leadership style as blending all of those, and having a clear vision, mission-driven ideas, decisive execution. A collaborative culture is incredibly important, and this deep sense of purpose, I think, is really something I try to instill in what I do, and trust. To be quite honest with you, across my teams, my leadership team, the communities, our partners that we work with, without trust, nothing sticks. The projects don't get built.
That is true. Catalyst isn't just building housing, you are helping reshape what a more equitable housing system could look like. What role do you believe nonprofits should play in that larger ecosystem, especially over the long term?
Huge role. There's a huge role and opportunity for nonprofits. At Catalyst, we look at ourselves as long-term stewards of affordable housing. Like, we build and hold. We don't build something and sell it. We're not gone the next day. We build for the long term. Again, that goes back to that long-term vision and thinking and perspective on things. We reinvest our surplus revenue and cash flows. There's not much, but what we do have, we reinvest it into more projects, and we don't displace tenants for profit. Nonprofits, I like to think, anchor affordability in volatile markets. We're as one way to look at it is counter-cyclical stabilizers. So when the real estate market is going like this, in commercial buildings, office buildings, or retail or industrial, affordable housing is always very stable. And so, we're trying to work with our large pension funds to look at nonprofit housing as an investable asset class where, put your money into affordable housing. And that's a win-win-win for the pension funds, for tenants, for nonprofits. And this is a role I think that nonprofits need to play more in Canada. We're a backbone of the housing system. We're part of that housing continuum, especially when you think about affordable rental. And we can't have a healthy housing system in Canada with missing parts. From deep subsidy to market housing ownership. You have to have all those parts so that people can move through that housing continuum. So the great thing about nonprofits as well is that we work with all different sectors of housing, from governments to private developers. We purchase units from private developers at cost, to community groups. It's a unique strength that nonprofits bring to housing in Canada. So I think there's a huge opportunity for nonprofits going forward. Again, I'd like to see what the federal government is planning with Build Canada Homes. Maybe there's a great opportunity for nonprofits to play a greater role in providing housing.
It is an uphill climb, though, right now. I know that that we're certainly experiencing it. I would just ask you, what gave you the spark to move into the space? What is your motivation to keep you going in this space?
Yeah, maybe going back to the leadership lessons that I've learned, and again, I started my career building Walmart anchored power centers, back in the early 2000s, late 90s, and it was exciting and fast paced. I certainly learned a lot, but after leading like major real estate portfolios at BCIMC, which is a pension fund in British Columbia and TELUS, including sustainability, workplace transformation, I really wanted to apply my skills into something that has a little bit more impact in my community. So again, back to the opportunity I saw at Catalyst is really the chance to apply those lessons learned and those skills that I developed over a career to use everything I knew and apply it to Catalyst, from development, asset management to governance, but really for community benefit. And this focus on urgent, challenging, and incredibly meaningful work has been incredibly fulfilling for me as a human being, and as a real estate professional. And I think the one thing that I've really experienced moving into the nonprofit world, affordable housing world, is again this deep sense of impact, of helping people, and it's incredibly rewarding. It's incredibly rewarding. So I love it.
Thank you, Scott.
Yeah.
Affordable housing touches on some of the most urgent issues we face: equity, sustainability, reconciliation. How do you and your team keep those values front and center in such a complex and high stakes environment?
Yeah, that's a great question. I have a great team, and my senior leadership team, my board, everyone is completely focused on making sure that those goals that you just mentioned, they're not side goals. They're not something off the side of our desk. Oh, well, let's check the box on this. Those aren't side goals for us. At Catalyst, they're kind of baked into everything that we do. Equity guides us for who we build for example, seniors, essential workers, Indigenous families, newcomers. Like we target all those people. We try and help all those people. The sustainability goals that we pursue shapes kind of how we build our buildings. We use low carbon materials. We build transit oriented sites. We build energy efficiently, so we don't cut corners in that either. And then reconciliation is very important for us, and so that dictates who we partner with. Many times we are proactive in approaching local First Nations in the communities in which we build to see if there's an alignment and potential partnership there. So it governs how we interact with our partners, how we allocate opportunity and so forth. So that's really important for us. And then internally, we foster diverse teams that are, inclusive leadership, and impact tracking, which is really important. So we found that our values only stick with us and with our team if they're embedded throughout what we do, and that's been very successful for us.
Looking ahead, what gives you hope for the future of housing in Canada? You did talk a little bit about it, but what message would you share with emerging leaders who want to make a difference in this space?
Yeah, this is a great question, because I think this is the time. It's a good time to get involved in making a difference, and the reason why I say that is I think the conversation about housing is changing. Housing is seen now as a public good. It's an economic necessity. It's not just a market product. So the timing is good because the conversation has changed, and I think is still changing. And we're seeing a growing collaboration across a whole bunch of sectors. Touched on this before, but levels of government, levels of community groups, and it's across the country. So this growing collaboration makes it exciting to work in the space as well. And I see a lot more of the new generation of leaders entering the space, entering it with the sense of urgency and vision, which I think is exciting. Certainly on my team, my executive team, we're all young professionals who are keen, eager, and making a huge difference, and really, really passionate about what they do. And personally, that's exciting for me. It gets me charged up, and that energy is contagious. So the other thing is, I think they're looking at building systems, not just projects. So how do we look at the whole project from partnering through to planning approvals, through construction, through operation? How does that system work together, and how can we make that better? So I guess my message to anyone or emerging leaders coming into the space is, don't wait for permission, don't wait for a green light, don't wait for an invitation to get involved in this space. The work needs you now. If you're passionate about it, don't hesitate. You'll find your lane, and you'll move with purpose. It's just the nature of this industry. And if you want to make an impact, this is the place to do it. This is the space to do it in. Housing is where equity, climate, health, personal well-being, community well-being, economy, it all intersects in housing. So it's a dynamic and exciting space.
Scott, maybe I'll ask if you would be open and people, our listeners or young leaders or others want to reach out to you if there's a space that they can, and if you'd share.
Yeah, absolutely. We're always looking for ways to advance the goals that we have in our mission. Happy to chat anytime. You can find our contact information on our website. It's www.catalyst.com.org. It's a bit of a mouthful, but everything else I was taken. We'd be happy to work with people if you're looking for mentorship or advice. Happy to do that. Please don't hesitate to reach out.
That's perfect. Thank you. Scott, thank you so much for joining us, sharing your insight, experience, and passion for building more equitable and sustainable communities. It's clear that Catalyst is doing some incredibly important work, both on the ground and at the systems level. And to our listeners, thank you for being with us on the way home. Scott, thank you so much for joining us on the show today.
Thank you very much. It's been a privilege to be here and share this conversation. Keep up the great work, and thank you all for listening.
This type of leadership shows what's possible when we approach housing not just as a product, but as a foundation for equity, sustainability, and community. To our listeners, thank you for tuning in. If you enjoyed this conversation, please consider subscribing, sharing the episode, or leaving a review. It helps others find the show and join this important dialogue. I'm Emmy Kelly, and this has been On the Way Home. Until next time, take care, and let's keep working together towards a future where everyone has a safe and dignified place to call home.
You're listening to On the Way Home with your host, Emmy Kelly.